Coming to get you, Bobber.
Hello guys, and welcome to another Halloween ranking video. Today we're going to be ranking every Laurie Strode. So Laurie Strode has been in 7 different Halloween movies, and it's not just the Jamie Lee Curtis ones that I'll be ranking today. It's going to be the Scout Taylor Compton rankings as well. Now I'm not just going to rank 2 Laurie Strodes and that's it. I'm going to be ranking 7 Laurie Strodes, so it's every time Laurie Strode has been in a Halloween movie. And at number 7, with no surprises, is Laurie Strode from Halloween 2 from 2009. I did have this one and this specific character on my most annoying characters list, so there's no surprise that this is at number 7. As mentioned before, I just couldn't get behind this Laurie. For some reason, Rob Zombie wanted her to be this really crazy person with PTSD. Yes, she had PTSD. Yes, she was messed up in the head, but I think he took it a little bit too far, and he took away what we loved about the original Laurie Strode, and he took away what we liked about Scout Taylor Compton's Laurie Strode from Halloween 2007. She just wasn't a Laurie that I could get behind. I think that she had more negatives than she did positives. And at number 6 is the Laurie from Halloween Resurrection. Now this is strange because I think Laurie as a character, and obviously Jamie Lee Curtis as an actress, was probably the best part about Halloween Resurrection. So that shows you how bad Halloween Resurrection was, that the best thing about it was someone who only lasted 3 or 4 minutes or so. And that's one of the reasons why she's at number 6, is she was actually not bad. I think the way that the direction that the company and the story wanted this Laurie Strode to go, Jamie Lee Curtis gave a good performance, what she could within the whatever time she had, maybe 3 or 4 minutes or so. So I think there just wasn't enough of this Laurie Strode to have a higher on the list. Otherwise she probably could have been higher, but I think the storyline that we're going with the brother-sister aspect, I think she was still traumatised with what happened in Halloween H2O, and I think Jamie Lee Curtis gave a good performance with what she was doing. You could tell that she wasn't really interested in doing this. She only came back because she was contracted to do so. I heard that she was getting paid $5 million to do this small role, so I think, yeah, you would come back and do it, and I think that she gave an okay performance. And at number 5 is the Laurie from Rob Zombie's Halloween 2007, the remake, and I think that it was going to be hard or big shoes to fill, Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was going to be hard for whoever was stepping into the role of Laurie Strode. But I think when you look at it, you strip it all back, I think that Scout Taylor Compton did give a good performance. Obviously, apart from Halloween 2, she gave a really good performance in 2007. She wasn't this shy, timid girl. You could see signs of that in this movie, which was fine because that was the original tropes of the original Laurie Strode, but she made it her own. She did give that performance that Jamie Lee Curtis gave, but she added her own edge to it as well. She was that sweet innocent girl, but at the same time she could have fun and she could have a bit of a laugh with her friends, so that's quite good. So I think that she was more three-dimensional than the original Laurie Strode, but I think what makes the original Laurie Strode better, and I got into that, was this version of Laurie was okay for the Rob Zombie movie that we had, but I just didn't really connect to her as much, and I think maybe that's because she wasn't as innocent as the original Laurie Strode, but still Scout Taylor Compton gave a good performance in this one. And at number 4 is the Laurie from Halloween 2 from 1981. Now I thought this one was a good one. It was just a little bit better than Scout Taylor Compton, and the reason being is obviously it's Laurie Strode, it's Jamie Lee Curtis, but at the same time she still had that innocence. But one thing it maybe lacks is the amount of screen time that Laurie gets in this movie, and not just the screen time, even when she's on screen, the lack of lines that Laurie had in this movie. When you watch it back, she never said much. She was either crying or she was silent throughout most of the movie, and the times that she spoke, it wasn't a lot of words. But I think because of the movie that she was in, because it was the second part and the continuation of the same night in 1978, I think it still had a lot of purpose and a lot of meaning to it. If she had more lines and if she had more things to do, then maybe she would be higher on the list, but still, she's a middle of the road. In at number 3 is where it starts to get controversial, because in at number 3 is the Laurie from the original 1978 Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis was just at the beginning of her career, and her acting wasn't amazing. Her acting was good for its time, and I think that might be why this is at number 3, is because the acting is dated. Now, I do like the character, and that's why it's high up on the list. She's, this shy, timid girl who is not as bubbly and outgoing as her friends. I think the way the movies went back in the 70s and 80s, where if you were shy and timid, you were going to be that final girl, and that's what Jamie Lee Curtis done with this Laurie Strode. So she epitomised the origins of the modern scream queen, and I think that's what I love about this character and this version of Laurie Strode, is because she was original. She hasn't been done before. She was the first Laurie Strode, and that's what I love about this one. I think the only thing that lets this version of Laurie Strode down for me is the acting. The acting's a little corny at times, and I think the acting in Halloween overall wasn't great. I think apart from Donald Pleasance, most of the acting was subpar. But Laurie Strode's, Jamie Lee Curtis, her acting was a little bit better than most of them, so she stood out more. And at number 2 is the Laurie from Halloween 2018, the latest Laurie in the franchise, and I think she gave a really good performance based on her 1978 character. We've had to wait 40 years to see what that version of timeline Laurie Strode went through for the past 40 years, and I think Jamie Lee Curtis as an actress after 40 years has grown immensely. She was a great actress from the late 70s onwards, but since the late 70s she was on to do other genre movies, comedies, action. She's done a lot, children's movies, Christmas movies. She's done a lot of different types of roles since Halloween 1978, so I think 40 years experience is good for a character like Laurie Strode, because she went through 40 years of pain. So Jamie Lee Curtis can build up whatever experience she's had over the 40 years and put it into the role, and I think that was good, because as much as I don't like all this drama and trauma that these characters are going through, I do like it, but I don't like to see too much. They maybe showed a little bit too much in this movie, but overall they got the point across. There's some scenes in the 2018 movie that shook me, especially the scene in the restaurant when you could see she was a broken woman. She left the restaurant in tears. That was really sad to watch. The scene where she's sitting in the car thinking about wanting to kill Michael for 40 years, that must have been building up after all these years, and you could see it in her expression, not just as an actress but as a character. I think it was a very powerful performance by Jamie Lee Curtis. And at number 1 is Laurie Strode from Halloween H2O 20 years later, aka Kerry Tate, because she did go into hiding after what happened in 1978. Now, I'll be honest, I think I prefer this, well obviously I do because it's number 1, but I prefer this version of Laurie Strode more than the 2018 Laurie Strode. That doesn't mean I don't like the 2018 version. I think both of them are very realistic on what they would be doing after their time away from Michael Myers, but they just went on a different path, and I think I prefer the path of Laurie Strode in 1998. Now, the 2018 path was she stayed where she was after 40 years and she just lived with it, and that's it. But whereas in the 1998 version of Laurie, after 20 years, because it's set in 1998, after 20 years she went into hiding, or within 20 years she went into hiding, changed her name, and she made a career for herself. I think that's the type of Laurie Strode that was more realistic for me, because she was a smart girl, you could tell, in 1978. So I think this version of Laurie was, she was attacked by someone and she survived. 20 years later, it was obviously her brother, but 20 years later she's had to live with it, but she's had to move on as well. She had a family, she had a daughter, she had a son, John, and she had to change her name for the safety of her own kid. And people say, why are they set in H2O in California? It doesn't make any sense. We want it to be set in Haddonfield, but realistically, would someone who was attacked in Haddonfield still be living there after 20 years, not knowing if Michael was still out there? Because she did mention in H2O that they never found his body after he was burned, so she was not going to be living there. No way would anyone be living where she was attacked twice in the same night. It just doesn't make sense. So I think realism, I think H2O's Laurie was more realistic, and that's why she's at number 1. Not just that, the performance by Jamie Lee Curtis in the 1998 version was hands down the best performance that Jamie Lee Curtis has ever given us for a Laurie Strode. She loved it at the time in 1998. Now she feels embarrassed by it, but I don't see why she's embarrassed by this performance, because this was a performance to be proud of. So that is my ranking for every Laurie Strode, guys. It might be a little bit controversial for some, because I know that some people who don't like H2O just don't like Laurie, and that's it. But see past the quality of each movie. Let me know down below, guys, what you like about the Laurie Strodes. If you can rank them, please do so, but don't rank them based on your favour of the movies, because obviously the original for me is the best, but clearly I'm ranking the Laurie Strodes and not the movies, and that's why the original was number 3. And as always, guys, thanks a lot for watching, thanks for subscribing, I'll see you soon, bye bye.